Dust behaved differently on Haldia. It didn't fall or settle like dust back on Earth. Oh no. It swirled in lazy spirals, hung in midair like it was debating whether to obey gravity or start a union, and most importantly, it got into asterisk everything. Jonah Drax spat a mouthful of it out of his helmet filter with a hiss and a growl, then banged the side of his breathing mask with the heel of his glove like he was reprimanding a stubborn toaster. The display blinked red once in protest, then obligingly cleared the filter. For now, see? He muttered to the suit, which neither responded nor cared. That's teamwork. You threaten the tech and it behaves. Just like the toaster back on the asterisk Nora J asterisk, before she exploded. Good times. Around him, the ruin stretched wide, a broken skeleton of blackened stone and twisted metal frames, like a cathedral that had been struck by a planet-sized hammer. Jonah's boots crunched over shattered tiles that glittered under Haldia's soft blue sky. The ruins were old, ancient even, pre-human, possibly pre-asterisk anything with thumbs. Exactly the kind of place he wasn't supposed to be, which, of course, made it irresistible. Jonah crouched near what looked like a collapsed doorway and adjusted the scanner on his wrist. A faint signature blinked up, a power reading very faint, almost lost beneath the static. But it was there. It pulsed like a fading heartbeat. "Jackpot," he whispered, then immediately regretted it. Whispering dramatically always jinxed things. Okay, not jackpot, just minor prize pool, participation trophy even. He ducked into the crevice. Inside, the ruin turned narrow and dark. Shadows moved where they shouldn't. His helmet light clicked on automatically, sweeping across what remained of ancient walls covered in geometric glyphs that squirmed when he looked directly at them. "Nope," he said. "Not gonna look at those for long. I've seen enough cursed artifacts in my day to know how this ends. One minute you're decoding a cool-looking swirl, next minute you're chewing glass and calling yourself the Herald of Zornax." The tunnel sloped downward, the air getting colder. Static whispered through the comms. His scanner's readings pulsed more steadily now. Whatever was down here, it wasn't dead yet. He found her in a chamber lined with crystal spines, like the inside of a geode built for giants. She lay in the center, curled in on herself, surrounded by shattered glass and thin pools of congealed fluid that might once have been coolant or blood or both. Her skin was pale with a faint silver sheen, and her dark hair was plastered to her face. She looked human at first glance, too human, except her ears. They were long, delicate, curving upward like the wings of a bird in mid-fold. "Okay," Jonah said, voice low, heart thudding. "That's new." His first instinct was to back away. His second was to poke her with something. His third, most dangerous instinct, one honed by years of bad decisions and worse luck, was to help. He kneeled beside her and pressed 2 fingers to her neck. A pulse, barely. Her skin was cold, too cold, but not stiff. She was breathing shallowly. One eye twitched beneath the lid. "Well, mystery elf lady," he said, fishing in his pack for a thermal wrap and emergency stim patch, "you've clearly had a rough day. Let's get you out of here before something even worse wakes up and decides you're its lunch." She didn't respond. He didn't expect her to, but her hand twitched slightly when he lifted her. Not in pain, in reflex. His ship wasn't far, just 2 sand dunes and a sarcastic autopilot away. The bucket asterisk, as he'd lovingly named it, was an aging merchant-class hauler that looked like someone had taken a lunchbox, taped on a few thrusters, and then lost a bet. It hissed in annoyance as he opened the cargo ramp. "You brought home another corpse, Jonah?" The ship's voice chirped from a speaker. "Because last time she tried to lay eggs in the coolant line." "Not a corpse," Jonah grunted, hauling the woman up the ramp. "She's breathing, kinda, also pretty sure not an insectoid." The ship was silent for a beat. "Well, that's new." He laid her gently on the medbay table, if one could call a retrofitted snack shelf and a lot of duct tape a medbay. The stim patch hummed as it activated. She twitched. Her hand gripped his wrist just for a second and her eyes fluttered open. Bright violet, not just purple, asterisk lit from within like twin nebulae smoldering behind her irises. She blinked, looked at him, then passed out again. "Well," Jonah said, exhaling, "she's either going to thank me or kill me when she wakes up." He didn't sleep much that night. Between checking her vitals, rewiring the med scanner, which kept insisting she had 2 livers and 0 bones, and trying to decode the strange circuit etchings on her collarbone, Jonah had his hands full. She had a tattoo, not ink, more like circuitry glowing faintly when scanned. ZTHAL-7, it was a designation, military, experimental, he couldn't tell. "ZTHAL-7, he murmured. "Bit of a mouthful, mind if I call you Z?" She didn't answer, obviously, but he liked the sound of it. Z. The next day he caught her out of bed, not walking, standing asterisk on the outer hull, no suit, no tether. Just standing, arms folded behind her back, long hair floating slightly in Haldia's thin atmosphere, watching the dead sky. How the hell? Jonah half shouted, half stumbled onto the hull, wind whipping at his coat. You were dying 12 hours ago. She didn't turn to look at him. I remember light, she said softly. Her voice was like broken wind chimes. And fire, then silence. Then she turned. Jonah, self-declared cynic, scavenger, and hopeless screw-up, felt something strange in that moment. Not fear, not awe, recognition. Her eyes met his. You were there, she said. Jonah blinked. What? She stepped toward him. You were there when I was made. Well, Jonah said, slowly backing away, that's extremely unlikely. I'm only 36 and have never dabbled in interstellar weapon design, except that one time in college, but that doesn't count. Z tilted her head. Maybe you've forgotten, she said, and then she smiled. It was not a safe smile. Jonah decided right then and there that he should have just poked her with a stick and left her in the ruins. Too late now? If you asked Jonah Drax what the worst thing was about owning an old hauler, he'd probably say it was the sentient coffee machine. Or maybe the nav system that thought sarcasm was a primary language. But today it was the fact that his comms console had just exploded. Not in the dramatic, hull-breaching way. No, it chose a more insulting route, fizzing like a shaken soda can before sparking and vomiting a small puff of smoke into Jonah's face. He coughed, waved at the smoke, and glared at the panel like it had insulted his mother. I told you not to touch anything. Z didn't flinch. She was crouched on the floor of the cockpit, her fingers still resting on a coil of exposed wire. Her long ears twitched slightly, betraying just the faintest reaction. Otherwise, she was composed, regal even, like she was meditating in the middle of a fire drill. I was recalibrating the harmonic field, she said. Harmonic, you fried the subspace transmitter. She stood smoothly, too smoothly. It was malfunctioning. It was old asterisk, like the rest of the ship, like asterisk me. Jonah threw up his hands. You can't just go around touching everything that hums. Z blinked. Why not? Jonah turned, yanked open a drawer, and pulled out a melted fuse like it was evidence in a trial. Because now we've got a live distress beacon bouncing across 3 systems, a nav system that's convinced we're headed for the Crab Nebula, and oh, look, no working comms to explain any of this. Z tilted her head. The Crab Nebula is beautiful this time of year. Jonah pinched the bridge of his nose. I'm going to lose my license, again. Z stepped closer and gently took the fried fuse from his hand, examining it with the same care one might use to study a wounded bird. They heard me. He froze. What? Z's eyes, violet and impossible, met his. I touched the field, the pulse went out. I didn't mean to, but it was instinct. Jonah sat down heavily in the pilot's chair, which groaned under the indignity. You're gonna have to explain that without using any words that might accidentally summon a space demon. She considered that for a moment. The ship, it spoke to me, I answered. And it exploded, Jonah said. That part was less intentional. Outside the ship, the horizon of Haldia shimmered. The dust storms were returning, curling across the plains like lazy ghosts. The bucket, safely perched on a small ridge of black stone, rattled faintly in the wind. Jonah sighed and leaned back. So, any more instincts I should know about? Should I hide the toaster? Z looked thoughtful. Only if it's sentient. He stared at her. Please tell me you're joking. She didn't answer. That worried him more than anything. 3 hours later, Jonah was halfway through reattaching the auxiliary comms antenna with a pair of pliers and a generous helping of space-grade chewing gum. It wouldn't last, but it might stop them from being entirely invisible to the galaxy. Z stood near the open hatch, staring up at the stars like she was trying to remember their names. I dream, she said suddenly. Jonah nearly dropped the pliers. Congratulations. They're not mine, the dreams, they belong to someone else. He paused. Well, that's ominous. Want to unpack that before I go full paranoia? Z turned to him. There are voices, a rhythm. Like a language I forgot how to speak. And images, places I've never been, but I no asterisk them. Jonah wiped sweat from his brow with a dusty sleeve. Sounds like standard PTSD, which, let me tell you, you're completely entitled to after waking up in a ruin with a mysterious barcode on your collarbone. She blinked slowly. There was a tower made of glass that never cracked, and a machine beneath it that sang. He stopped. Okay, that's oddly specific and poetic. Are you sure you're not quoting some ancient space opera? Z didn't laugh, she never laughed, that was starting to bother him. So what are we talking here? He asked. Like repressed memories, psychic broadcasts, transdimensional amnesia, because I've had all three and let me tell you, number 2 comes with serious side effects. Z walked toward him. I don't know, but I think I'm starting to wake up. That set off warning bells in his brain, the kind that had saved his life exactly once, and nearly got him ejected into deep space 3 other times. He raised a hand. Let's just hold off on any further awakening until we've left this lovely dust bowl behind. Maybe find a neutral port, get you a translator, and a medical scan that doesn't run on wishful thinking. Before Z could reply, the ship's console beeped, not the good kind of beep. The angry asterisk, red asterisk, urgent asterisk kind. Jonah bolted to the terminal. What now? A flashing symbol appeared on the cracked screen, 3 concentric rings around a central glyph. Jonah didn't recognize it, but Z did. She stared at it like someone had slapped her across the face. They found me, she whispered. Who's they? She didn't answer. Jonah read the incoming data stream. Looks like a drone ping, one of those long-range recon types used by, oh great, coalition warcleaners. Z backed away from the screen. I need to leave now. Jonah threw up his hands. That's the plan, but thanks for the reminder. He slapped the ignition control. The ship rumbled to life. The floor vibrated. Outside, the dust picked up, curling like claws against the sky. The radar showed a fast-moving object approaching, small, sleek, fast. A drone, armed. Z was already at the turret panel. Her hands hovered over the controls, fingers twitching like she was hearing a melody no one else could. Jonah called back, can you even use that thing? Z didn't respond. The drone appeared over the ridge in a flash of silver and screamed toward them. Z's eyes lit, not metaphorically, lit asterisk. She touched the console. The turret didn't fire. Instead, the ship groaned and a low hum built in the walls. Jonah's mouth went dry. What are you doing? Z whispered something. A single word in a language that sounded like breaking glass and wind chimes. The drone froze midair, then crumpled, not exploded, not shot. It folded asterisk like paper collapsing inward and vanished. Jonah stared. Z sat down very slowly. I didn't mean to do that, she said. He walked to her side, eyes wide. Z, what are you? She didn't look at him. I think I was made to asterisk end things. Jonah swallowed hard. That's not ominous at all. Z looked up. You still helped me. Why? He thought about it, really thought, then shrugged. I figured you'd be better company than the coffee machine. It took Jonah a full 2 days to convince the ship not to report Z to the nearest planetary authority. Technically, the bucket didn't have loyalty protocols. It had something worse. A grudging sense of self-preservation paired with an outdated galactic ethics module that occasionally popped up with cheerful suggestions like, it is your duty to report Class 0 anomalies to avoid a system-wide extinction event. Jonah taped over the speaker with a sticky note that said, shut UPKEVIN, and declared the debate over. Z spent most of those days in the cargo bay, sitting perfectly still on a crate that once held illegal plant-based explosives, now empty, thankfully. She didn't eat, barely slept, and spoke only when spoken to. At first, Jonah thought she was meditating. Then he checked the scanner and realized she was asterisk broadcasting. Tiny bursts of radiation, inaudible, invisible, just brushing the edges of normal detection. Like whispers in a language too old to be remembered. You're going to attract asterisk something doing that, he said on day 3, arms crossed and voice edged with the kind of parental frustration usually reserved for toddlers who'd painted a cat. Z opened one eye. I already did. Well, let's try not to attract asterisk more. We barely survived the last drone. That drone was nothing, she said. See, Jonah muttered, that's the kind of sentence that gets people punched in bars and vaporized in open space. She tilted her head. Have you been vaporized? He blinked. No. Then the statement is valid. Jonah sighed the sigh of a man who had once tried to date a telepath and ended up getting ghosted before the first message. Let's focus on the immediate problem. Namely, who the hell are you, what's in your head, and why did you collapse a drone without touching it? Z stood, slow and deliberate, like her bones remembered gravity just a moment too late. I remember fragments. A world not mapped by your charts. A name that had no vowels. A war that wasn't called a war because there were no sides, just intentions. She walked to the edge of the cargo bay. Jonah's ship windows weren't much, but they showed the stars in quiet scatter. A velvet sky pocked with the bright pinpricks of long-dead light. I remember being one of 9, she said. Born not from wombs but from sequences. Woven into metal and flesh by machines older than empires. We were the choirs, the final instruments. I was Zed-Thal-7, but I chose the name Z because you did, and I find I like it. Jonah stared, then said, okay, great, that's existentially horrifying, but also kind of poetic, so you're some kind of galactic superweapon. She looked at him. I'm not sure anymore, but I remember what I was made for. Which is to respond to threats, to silence things. He took a cautious step back. Like me? No, she said, a faint curve in her lips that might have been a smile. You're not dangerous. Gee, Jonah said, thanks, I do try. Their next stop was a place Jonah hadn't visited since he got banned for accidentally selling a fake star chart to a minor royal. A backwater refueling station orbiting a dying moon named Rilk. Rilk didn't have an atmosphere or a purpose or charm, but it did have a bar and a black market information broker named Snag who owed Jonah a favor. Well, more like a small grudge and a pint of blood. But Jonah liked to stay optimistic. Stay on the ship, he told Z as he donned his jacket and tried to flatten his hair. Last thing I need is you folding someone in half because they try to sell you a drink. Z blinked. I can fold people in half. No, not never mind, just don't touch anything that hums, glows, or offers you a deal. She considered that. What if it's all three? Especially then. He left before she could ask more questions. And before she could start humming again, the last time she did that, the ship's coffee machine turned itself inside out. The bar was called Asterisk, the Bent Parsec Asterisk. Inside, the walls were covered with broken navigation consoles and signed photographs of people who had presumably died terribly. The bartender was an AI in a fishbowl, speaking through a series of bubbles that translated into insults. Snag sat in the corner, surrounded by crates and a cloud of suspiciously green vapor. Jonah pulled up a seat. You, Snag said without looking, are not welcome. Jonah grinned. I'm not here, I'm a hallucination. Very persistent. Snag turned one eye toward him. You sold me a map to a dead system that exploded 6 years ago. I said it might be unstable. You said it was perfect for long-term investments. Emotionally, Jonah shot back. You're just not thinking metaphysically enough. Snag groaned. What do you want? Jonah leaned in. I need information on a V-Horan construct, serial Zed-Thal-7, something old, something choir-like. Snag stopped just for a moment, long enough for the vapor to pause its swirl. You're joking. Jonah didn't blink. Snag opened a drawer under the table and pulled out a ragged data crystal. It looked half-burned, but when slotted into a reader it flickered to life. Schematics, ancient, incomplete. The V-Horan made 9 choirs, final response mechanisms for threats they couldn't predict, built to adapt, self-teaching. Self-regulating, one for each planetary defense network they'd left behind when they retreated from expansion. Retreated. They disappeared Drax, like smoke, no one knows why. Some say they turned themselves into energy, others think the choirs turned on them. Jonah's stomach twisted. What happened to the choirs? Snag leaned forward. They went silent, all but one. Jonah left shortly after, data crystal in pocket, thoughts in knots. Z hadn't told him the half of it. Back on the bucket, she was in the engine room, standing in front of the ship's AI core. Z. He called, stepping in. What are you? The AI spoke first. I remember you, it said, not Kevin, the usual dry voice, but something old something deep. Jonah froze. Z, what did you do? I tuned it, she said. It was buried, your ship was once a V-Horan courier, damaged, wounded, I spoke to it. Jonah felt the walls pulse, not vibrate, pulse. The ship said, I served the 9th choir. I await orders. Jonah rubbed his temples. Okay, 1, I hate that sentence. 2, we're not giving it any. Z turned. You already did when you saved me. Jonah took a slow breath. Z, we need to talk about what you are. She looked at him, eyes soft, conflicted. I don't know, she said, but I think I'm remembering who you are. Jonah laughed nervously. That can't be right. I'm just a guy with bad luck and a worse diet. She stepped closer. You were there, she whispered, before when the choirs sang. He backed up. Okay, we are officially past my pay grade. Z smiled, gently this time. You always said that too. It started with a sneeze. One moment the interior of the bucket was blessedly quiet. Well, quiet enough, considering the constant creaks, whirs, and occasional self-satisfied chirps of its aging systems. And the next, Z let out a short, sharp sneeze from the far end of the galley. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was catastrophic. All the lights dimmed. Then gravity died. Jonah, halfway through a mouthful of reheated nutrient paste that tasted suspiciously like regret, found himself floating, spoon first, into the ceiling. The paste followed half a second later and met his face with all the grace of a failing meteor. "Flurg," he yelped, sputtering. "What did you asterisk do?" Z blinked up at him, or rather over at him, since directions had become a suggestion, and looked genuinely puzzled. "I sneezed." "You sneezed?" Jonah flailed his arms in zero-G indignation. "What, are you allergic to physics?" Z squinted, her long ears twitching. There was a resonance shift, brief, unstable. "Unstable? Lady, you just turned my asterisk ship into a salad spinner." He grabbed a handle on the wall and pulled himself toward the manual override panel. It flickered, spat out 3 sparks, and then went completely black. "Fantastic," he muttered. "Okay, deep breath. This is fine. This is totally fine. Just a minor catastrophic failure of the grav plating. Again." Z rotated slowly, completely calm, like a floating monk. "It will return. The resonance was temporary." "Yeah, well, so was the asterisk Titanic asterisk S structural integrity." Jonah spent the next 10 minutes manually rebooting the system with a spanner, 2 jumper wires, and a gentle but persuasive kick to the lower conduit. Eventually, the artificial gravity kicked back in with an awkward asterisk thud, and Z landed softly on her feet while Jonah faceplanted into a chair. He groaned into the upholstery. "You know, I really miss the days when the weirdest thing on this ship was Kevin's obsession with haiku." "I found them elegant," Z offered. Jonah sat up, hair standing on end, and stared at her. "You read them." "He recites them at night when the lights dim. I think he's lonely." Jonah made a mental note to permanently disconnect the AI's poetry module. Later, after mopping up the remnants of dinner and triple-checking that the gravity system wasn't going to perform another impromptu impersonation of a black hole, Jonah sat in the pilot's seat staring at the star maps. He didn't like their odds. "Coalition's got bounties out for anything with V-Horan tech," he said. "Which you are, technically, kind of a lot." Z sat nearby, cross-legged on the floor, examining a broken circuit board like it held ancient truths. "I am not tech. I was made asterisk with asterisk tech. There's a difference." "Oh, great. So you're a philosophical superweapon. I'm not a weapon." "You collapsed a drone with a thought and just shorted out the gravity plating by sneezing." "If I did either of those things, I'd be asterisk very impressed with myself and also probably arrested." Z looked up at him. "Would you turn me in?" Jonah didn't answer right away. He glanced at the screen. A coalition patrol had pinged their last known coordinates less than 12 hours ago. "I don't know what you are, Z, but you're not hurting anyone, yet. That's more than I can say for most of the galaxy." She seemed to consider this. "You didn't ask who made me." Jonah rubbed his temples. "Do I asterisk want asterisk to know?" She stood and approached the viewport, watching the endless stars stretch across the void. The choirs weren't designed by the V-Horan. Jonah blinked. "Wait, what?" "They found asterisk us in the deep, frozen in the dark between stars. They thought they made us, but they only woke asterisk us." Jonah let that sit for a moment. "You're telling me you're older than the V-Horan, the civilization that supposedly folded entire moons into data packets for fun." Z nodded. Jonah stood. "Okay, nope, that's too much. I need a drink. We're out of synthuisky." "Then I'll just imagine I'm drunk. That's basically what I've been doing since I met you anyway." Z's expression didn't change, but something in her posture softened. "You're not afraid." "I am deeply afraid," Jonah said, hands in the air. "I'm just too tired to panic properly." She walked toward the central console, her steps quiet, almost reverent. "I think I was meant to be forgotten. I think that's why I was buried. I failed a command I can't remember." Jonah frowned. "What kind of command?" She hesitated. "End something. I chose not to. I think that's why I slept." "Congratulations," Jonah said, half joking. "You rebelled against your creators. That makes you officially sentient. Welcome to the club. The initiation involves taxes and bad coffee." Z gave him a puzzled look. "What are taxes?" Jonah grinned. "A system designed to punish people for breathing." He sat down beside her. "So what now? Are you planning to keep unfolding drones and shorting out gravity every time someone breathes too hard near you?" "I can try to suppress it." Jonah nodded. "Cool, let's aim for no more space station blackouts as a goal." Suddenly, the console beeped, not the standard grumpy beep of a low battery or the ominous warble of a misaligned thruster. No. This was a asterisk ping asterisk, a message, encrypted, ancient, and broadcasting on a frequency the galaxy hadn't used in centuries. Jonah looked at Z. Z was already pale. "It's a call," she said. One only the choirs would hear. Jonah leaned in. What's it say? Her voice was barely a whisper. Come home, dormant one. He let out a slow breath. Okay, nope, definitely not ominous. Z looked up at him. I don't know where home is. Jonah swallowed. Well, then let's not find out just yet. But something deep in the ship responded. A hum. A flicker of light in the walls, and far off in a corner of the galaxy long forgotten, something asterisk heard asterisk her. And it started to wake. The vault of screaming suns didn't scream. Not literally, not at first. It hummed asterisk like a sleeping thing trying to remember how to breathe. Jonah had expected shrieks, howls, maybe a banshee or two clawing at the stars, but no. It was quieter, worse somehow. A kind of quiet that made his teeth itch and the ship's lights flicker just slightly offbeat, like the bucket was trying not to have a panic attack. This was a mistake, Jonah muttered, arms folded across his chest as they drifted closer to the massive structure hanging in the dark like a spider's egg. A big, screaming, multi-tentacled mistake. You said it didn't scream, Z pointed out, completely straight-faced. I was trying to be asterisk optimistic asterisk okay. From the viewport, the vault was an irregular polyhedron, its surfaces shifting as they moved, never the same twice. Some sides were glass-like, reflecting stars that weren't there. Others were scorched black with what might have been impact scars, or writing too old for the universe to remember. Jonah squinted at it until his head throbbed. Z, of course, was unbothered. She stood at the center of the cockpit, one hand lightly resting on the console, her eyes fixed on the vault like she was remembering something personal about it. Like it had sung her lullabies. Or tried to strangle her in the womb. Jonah cleared his throat. So, we sure this is the place? Z nodded. The signal originated from within. And you're sure asterisk, you didn't accidentally broadcast your own coordinates. I don't sneeze in binary, she said. Good to know, Jonah muttered. I'll update your medical chart. He adjusted the course manually, trusting neither the ship's aging nav systems nor the vault's suspiciously friendly docking beacon, which blinked green and pulsed a soft, melodic tone that made his spine squirm. As they approached, a corridor unfolded from the side of the vault, not opened, not extended. Unfolded asterisk like space itself was peeling back a corner of its skin. Jonah let out a low whistle. That's not a door. That's origami for nightmares. Z looked serene. It remembers me. Jonah slapped the console. Great. Love being remembered by things with non-Euclidean geometry. That always ends well. The inside of the vault was cold. Not temperature cold, asterisk conceptually asterisk cold. The kind of cold that made time feel thin. Jonah's boots made no sound on the floor, which reflected nothing, not even light. Z walked ahead, guided by some invisible memory, her steps deliberate and silent. Jonah trailed behind, muttering to himself. Next time, Jonah, let's go to a library asterisk without asterisk ambient dread. Maybe one that serves drinks, maybe one with chairs. Walls rose and fell around them, responding to their movement. Corridors curved inward, then twisted into new shapes. At one point, they passed what looked like a hallway of teeth. Jonah stared straight ahead and asterisk refused asterisk to make a comment. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber. And there, floating serenely in the center of a vast antigrav dome, was the strangest librarian Jonah had ever seen. It was moss, not moss asterisk on asterisk something. Just moss, green, thick, sentient, and pulsating faintly. A dozen fibrous tendrils hung from the ceiling and walls like lazy vines. Two glimmering bioluminescent spots pulsed in the middle of it like eyes. Welcome to the archive, it said, in a voice like tree roots cracking stone. Please remove your shoes. Jonah blinked. Excuse me. The moss drooped slightly. A joke, you are permitted footwear. Humor acknowledged, proceed. Z stepped forward. I seek information on the choirs. The moss hesitated. Request acknowledged. Warning, accessing choir data requires resonance matching. If unauthorized, you may be unmade. Jonah stepped back. Unmade as in. Unmade, the moss said helpfully. Unconstructed, evicted from physical probability. Jonah turned to Z. Have I mentioned I hate this place? Z stepped into a circle of soft, glowing patterns on the floor. Her skin began to shimmer and the light responded like it asterisk knew asterisk her. The patterns pulsed. The moss swayed. The dome filled with sound, not music exactly, but memory shaped into tone. Images flooded the chamber. Floating, ghostly impressions of vast cities hovering over black suns. Choirs, 9 of them, standing in impossible symmetry, each different, each beautiful and terrifying in their own way. Some glowed with internal fire. Others floated on nothing, bodies split across dimensions. Each bore a sigil and Z's matched the 7th. They were the last answer, the Moss intoned. Designed to defend the Vhorin, but older than their science. A gift, a curse, a mirror they woke too slowly. The images changed, the cities burning. Choirs unraveling, one Z's standing apart. She did not act, the Moss said. She chose asterisk, the others obeyed, she questioned, the collapse began. Z's voice was a whisper, why? The Moss shuddered. The capacity for choice is the anomaly. The engine inside you evolved. Jonah swallowed hard, engine. In her core, the Moss said, the echo engine, not mechanical, not logical, a singularity of intent, one thought repeating. Do not destroy. Z staggered, Jonah caught her, surprised by how light she felt. That thought wasn't mine, she whispered. It was planted. The Moss lowered a vine. You must leave now, something watches. Jonah didn't need convincing. Oh, asterisk, now the vault gets creeped out. Lovely. They ran, the corridors changed again, now faster, twitchier. The air grew thicker. The hum became a thrum, vibrating through Jonah's bones. The vault didn't want them to leave. Z stopped at a panel, an impossibly smooth surface etched with symbols that made Jonah's eyes water. She pressed her palm to it and sang asterisk. The wall screamed. That was the first real scream. Space twisted. And then they were outside, back on the bucket asterisk, which had relocated 20 clicks away and was listing slightly, as if trying to avoid the vault's eye. Jonah collapsed into the pilot's seat, panting. Okay, no more haunted libraries. Z stood beside him, hands trembling. The echo engine isn't just in me, she said. It's alive, it remembers you. Jonah's heart stopped. Me. Z nodded slowly. It remembers asterisk you. Jonah hadn't planned on having an existential crisis before breakfast. He also hadn't planned on learning that the biomechanical alien woman he'd rescued from a ruin was potentially carrying an ancient, semi-sentient power source that recognized him. Or that his rickety hauler, the bucket, was now trying to speak in Vhorin glyphs through the coffee machine. But here he was, sitting in the cockpit, sleep-deprived, chewing on a cube of stale nutrition foam, and staring at a screen filled with slowly assembling star maps and runes. You're sure it's asterisk me? He asked for the 3rd time in an hour. Z sat opposite him in the co-pilot's seat, her posture as unreadable as ever. Yes. No chance it's another Jonah Drax. Maybe someone from a failed cloning project. You know, lots of shady genetic experiments happen on the moons of Jerxel IV. Maybe I'm just someone's extra. Z tilted her head. You're not an extra. You were the asterisk origin asterisk. Jonah blinked. Right, cool, definitely not horrifying. Let's unpack that. What do you mean, origin? I'm very confident my most significant achievement is once hot-wiring a mining bot to flirt with customs officers. She didn't smile. You were there when the choirs awoke, your face, your voice. The imprint is inside the engine. He set down the nutrition cube. Z, I'm not that old. I mean, I've asterisk dated people who felt like they were from another era, but I've only got 36 standard cycles under my belt. And half of those were bad decisions. You're not ancient, she agreed. But the imprint doesn't lie. I saw you, not as you are now, but you were the one who told me to sleep. Jonah stood and paced the cockpit, hands on his head. So what? I've got a twin, a time-traveling ancestor, a reincarnated brainwave bouncing around the quantum soup. It's more than that, Z said softly. The engine doesn't remember people, it remembers asterisk intention. Whoever put me to sleep, whoever stopped asterisk me, it wasn't just using a voice. They carried a pattern, a signature. Jonah stopped pacing. You're saying I carry that pattern? She nodded, he stared at the floor. Okay. That's fine, no pressure. Just, casually bonded to an ancient power core that might decide the fate of the galaxy. Could be worse. Z looked at him. Could it? He gave her a pointed look. Let me have this. Later that cycle, while Jonah busied himself reconfiguring the ship's subspace shielding, which had inexplicably started harmonizing with Z's heartbeat. She sat alone in the engine bay, knees drawn to her chest. The vault's revelations stirred more than answers. They pulled on something old, not quite memory, something deeper, asterisk, impressions, echoes. She remembered 9 figures standing beneath a black sun. She remembered one voice among them, breaking from the song, saying, "This is not the way." That voice had changed the pattern. That voice had been Jonah's, but how could that be? She touched her chest, just above the faint hum of the echo engine buried beneath bone and metal and forgotten design. It pulsed once, faint and warm. "You changed me," she whispered. The engine responded, not in words but in certainty. The alarm hit them like a slap from reality. Jonah dropped his spanner, glanced at the console, and saw the blinking red icon of * incoming contact. Not a friendly ping, not even a neutral inquiry. This was the digital equivalent of a thrown bottle in a bar. He shouted down the corridor. "Z, Company." She appeared within seconds, calm as ever. "Coalition?" she asked. Jonah scanned the identifiers. "Worse, freelance bounty runners, one big, two smaller escorts. Looks like someone sold them a tip." Z's expression didn't change, but her fingers twitched. Jonah grunted. "I hate bounty runners. All the firepower, none of the dental plans." He threw himself into the pilot's chair as the ship lurched. The attackers had arrived on silent vectors, clever. Their lead ship, a spike-nosed corvette bristling with railguns and arrogance, hailed them. Jonah accepted the comms. A face flickered onto the screen, scarred, smug, and chewing something that looked like it once screamed. "Jonah Drax," the man drawled. "And the lady you shouldn't have picked up, congratulations. You've won yourself a ticket to the scrap bin." Jonah leaned forward. "Hey, Slade, still compensating for that tiny ship." Slade's eyes narrowed. "Give her up now, and we'll make sure you don't float home in pieces." Z stepped beside Jonah, her voice steady. "You should leave." Slade laughed. "She speaks. Look, sweetheart, I don't care how many sparks you throw. Your bounty's worth more than your mystery tricks." Z's eyes glowed. Jonah stood. Wait. Z, maybe we don't want to go full planetary defense mode inside the ship, huh? Small space. Lots of wires, me." She blinked. "I wasn't going to." "Good, great. I love not being vaporized." He turned back to the console, fingers flying. "All right, time to earn that B- in evasive maneuvers." The ship jolted as the first salvo hit their shields. Energy crackled across the hull. "Bucket," Jonah called. "Give me full burn, Vector 390. The ship whined. "I know it's hard. I know we've got a clogged coolant valve, and Z may or may not be broadcasting vibes that confuse your AI core. But we are * not dying today." Z placed a hand on the console. The ship surged, not in thrust, * in space. They skipped. One moment the bucket was corkscrewing through plasma fire, and the next it was. It was * somewhere else *, a half-second blink forward like a skipped page in a story. Jonah gasped. What the hell was that? Z's face was pale. Resonant shift, the engine reacted. Did we just fold space? Just a little. Just a little. Z, that's like saying the sun is * mildly toasty *. Behind them, Slade's ship stumbled to recover. One of the escorts spiraled, its nav sensors overloaded. The other fired wildly, missing completely. Jonah looped them through a dense asteroid belt, shouting over the klaxons. Z, if you've got more of that bending reality trick, now's the time. I can't control it yet, she said, but I can guide it. She sat beside him, one hand pressed to the control panel. The ship's systems, old, finicky, deeply opinionated, responded like they'd been waiting for her all along. Together, they weaved through rock and ruin. The corvette followed, furious. Jonah smirked. You ever play chicken with a grav well? Z looked confused. Is that a culinary term? He laughed and flipped the switch. Slade's ship barreled after them, straight into the unstable edge of a derelict starfield. The well activated, the corvette vanished. Jonah let out a long breath. That was deeply * satisfying. Z stared ahead. They'll send more. Then we keep running. She shook her head. No, we * wake up. You saw it in the vault. I was part of something bigger, so were you. Jonah looked at her. Z touched the panel, voice quiet. It's time we find out why. Jonah Drax stood at the edge of a world that did not exist on any map. It shimmered before him like a dream trying to remember its own rules, stars bending slightly around its edges, space humming in a register that made his bones vibrate. No broadcasts, no signatures, just a signal only Z could hear, and now somehow so could he. They called it the silent fold ***. An ancient fallback, older than Vhoran science, where abandoned choirs once whispered themselves to sleep. Z stood beside him, her long ears still, her face unreadable. Beneath her skin, the faint glow of the echo engine pulsed gently, rhythmically, * not dangerous *. Jonah had learned just * awake *. You sure this is where we need to be? He asked, trying to sound casual, even as the hull of Asterisk the bucket creaked in protest under the strange gravity. Z nodded. This is where I was meant to end. Jonah raised a brow. Cheery, love that. She gave him a look, half amusement, half sadness. Not end like cease, end like complete. He took a deep breath. You know, most people complete themselves with therapy and a dog. They walked together through the breached hull of what remained of a V-Horan shiphalter, long rusted and blooming with crystal growths. The inside was filled with old voices, not recorded, but remembered. Echoes that played only for those who once belonged. And now so did Jonah. Why asterisk me? He asked, not for the first time. Z didn't answer immediately. Her fingers brushed the glyphs lining the wall. They lit up under her touch, not in fire or neon, but with something subtler, memory, recognition. You changed the code, she said quietly. The choirs were born to obey. But you or someone with your pattern altered my prime directive. Just enough. One command, pause asterisk. You didn't want to destroy, you wanted to give me a chance to decide. Jonah blinked. I've said a lot of reckless things in my life, but that one sounds almost noble. You told me to sleep, Z continued, so that I could wake asterisk different. He rubbed the back of his neck. And now that you are... Z turned to him. Her eyes were no longer just glowing with strange light. They were hers now, firm, aware. I don't want to be a weapon. Jonah let out a slow breath. Then don't be. The bucket pinged them. A soft, low chime, no alarm, just a notification. The coalition ships that had been hunting them had arrived in the outer orbit, but they didn't come closer. Jonah raised an eyebrow at the console. They're stopping. They feel it, Z said. They don't know what it is, but they're afraid. Jonah looked out the viewport. The stars beyond the fold were the same, quiet, sharp, indifferent, but something had asterisk changed. He felt it deep in the ship's bones and deeper in himself. Z placed a hand on the panel and closed her eyes. The choirs are calling, she said. What's left of them? Dying fragments, lost cores. Pieces scattered across 1,000 dead systems. Jonah tried to keep up. So what, you're gonna bring them back? Restart the galactic apocalypse? No, she whispered. I'm going to give them what you gave me. A pause, a choice. She turned to him, something like hope flickering at the edge of her face. You don't have to stay. He stared at her. What, and missed the opportunity to be morally outclassed by a walking cosmic reset button. Z smiled, asterisk actually smiled, asterisk, and for a second Jonah forgot she could fold reality with a thought. Seriously, he added, voice quieter, if you're doing this, I'm with you. Someone's gotta be there to stop you if you sneeze again. I'm learning control. Tell that to my spine. Z moved to the heart of the altar where 9 empty pedestals waited. One still shimmered faintly, hers. She stepped onto it. The vault's memory surged again, 9 choirs once singing in unity. One had refused to finish the verse. That refusal had saved lives, perhaps millions. Z raised her arms and the fold responded, not violently, not dramatically, but with a gentle exhalation. The remaining choir fragments, distant and flickering across space, felt the signal, a call not to wake for war but for peace. I'm transmitting a new prime pattern, Z said.